lose a close one in Kansas City, 32-29, and it's the Chiefs to the Super Bowl again. Eric Wood joins us now. Mike Schopp and the Bulldog. Eric's on the West Her hotline. What's the right first question? How are you? How about that? How are you today?
I'm good. I ended up driving back from Kansas City last night. I had planned on stopping, but after a game like that, your mind's racing, so you just truck it home, and a lot of road time, a lot of windshield time to think about the game and how it unfolded and in the season. So we can unpack all that.
All right. Yeah. Well, there's plenty to unpack. Can we maybe start here, if you'll indulge me? One of my most prominent thoughts is how, and I just said it at the end of last segment again, how last year, Bills with the ball, down 3, in your barn. All right, I love my chances. Let's go. This is what I'm waiting for. I've got the guy that can make this happen, so let's make it happen. And we all know how that ended. And now yesterday, not in my barn, instead back in their place, and very similar. I'm down 3. I've got the arsenal of timeouts. I'm all right. I've got my MVP guy. Let's go. And without, tearing Josh apart, because that would be asinine, is it fair to, wonder, God, can he – I know it's a lot to ask, but, man, it's 2 years in a row. He just has not been able to get them there.
Yeah, and it's frustrating and it's disappointing. And, those drives are the ones at the end you remember. And, it's different moments throughout the game that lead you to that point in the game where you're down at the end. And so, yeah, just couldn't get it done at the end 2 years in a row. And you like your spot. I mean, at the beginning of the season in a transition year, if you would have said – we're going to be at the AFC Championship game, we're going to get the ball back, 3 minutes and 30 seconds, 3 timeouts, we'd feel pretty good about that, and just couldn't get it done in the end. And it's disappointing, and each year that goes by, it's not a wasted year by any means. There's so many great memories. There's so much great that came from this season as far as memories and moments and a potential MVP, but this is year 7 for Josh Allen. We haven't been able to get to the Super Bowl yet, and I know he's likely got a long career ahead of him. He's incredibly gifted. He's still young, but oh man, it's just frustrating. And the way that they built momentum throughout the season, the way the roster was built, the way that they could attack you from so many different angles, the way the run game emerged, especially late in the year and in the playoffs, you just felt really good about the Bills' chances yesterday.
On their last series, I watched 5 minutes from Jeff Schwartz today on just the last play and how he thought there had to be miscommunication between the line and the quarterback, or one or both just didn't see what they should have been able to see. On that, how fresh is that play in your mind? Allen sort of running into the corner blitz from his right, and then the heave to Kincaid that still could have been caught, but looked like maybe the Bills or Allen himself should have looked elsewhere.
Yeah, it's easy to say that now, obviously. And, in the moment when me and Chris were talking about it in the break, and I said, all year in those must-have situations, they've ran a lot of that orbit motion with Shakir, and it's worked. And either teams rally to Shakir and someone comes open across the middle, or they don't rally to Shakir on that orbit motion, whether he keeps going or he goes back the opposite way. It's just worked time and time again. So they go to it out of an empty formation, so you don't have the back there to potentially provide some extra insurance if there is a miscommunication. But I had recorded with Ryan Fitzpatrick today on my Center on Buffalo podcast, and he was talking about from a quarterback's perspective. This was interesting to me that Steve Spagnuolo loves the will free safety blitz. So the will's going to come and the free safety is going to come. But if it's a condensed formation like it was, the Bills are into the boundary and there's a tighter split by the wide receiver, then they'll often convert that to a corner. But it's so hard for a quarterback to see because there's not really indications that corner is going to come on the play. And I heard Connor McGovern talking his post-game in the locker room after the game, talking about how he wishes he would have slid that protection right to provide Josh more protection. They end up having a guy on the left-hand side who was simply just spying, so we had too many blockers to the left, not enough on the right, and I don't know enough about it to say who was at fault there, but obviously a protection breakdown.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really tough look when you get to it. Osiris Torrance ends up blocking air, And I don't know that David Edwards did much of anything as far as blocking anyone on the play because, all the pressure came from the right side. Torrance thinks the guy in front of him, that guy pivots toward McGovern, and he goes with him, but then McGovern ends up with him, and then Torrance is just sort of like, oh, and then by then the DB is by him, and it's just a jailbreak.
And real quick on that, I mean, cornerback blitzes are gutsy calls. If there's a quick built-in beater on the outside there, or Josh makes him pay, I mean, we might be having a conversation today where does Spags keep his job? I mean, you fire corners like that, it is risky, but give him credit to have the guts to do it in that situation. And maybe you didn't like how the Bills were driving down the field again, and after, they had 2 punts in their first 3 or 4 possessions, and they really got it rolling offensively. So, and then they get stopped on that 4th and 1 in the fourth quarter. But, I guess he said, screw it, let's fire the corner here, and it paid off.
With Eric Wood, we've got to talk about these quarterback sneak plays, Eric. Like 3 times stopped in this game with the quarterback the size of Allen. Can you explain it? Is there a technical aspect of this from a lineman standpoint or from Allen's? We've seen how the Bills almost always go to the left, or Allen almost always goes to the left here. How did the Chiefs stop him 3 times?
Yeah, the one still shot that I saw from above, they had Chris Jones lined up. It looked like offsides, but unless you're touching in those situations, they generally don't call it. Or if someone flinches, before the snap, then they'll call it. But it looked like they had Chris Jones lined up to Connor McGovern's right, really crowding him, if not offsides, and then trying to just shove him to the left to try and clog it up further on the left-hand side. Guys went low, other guys went high. And in those situations where you have the push behind them, there's not really anything else you could do in those situations. You can try and find kind of a different gap that Josh can go through, but give them credit. They stopped or close to stopped him, and the officials called it a stop. And so, Kansas City, I believe, had given up 32 of 32 on their last QB sneak stop attempts, and then they get 3 yesterday. One takes points off the board with the 2-point conversion attempt, and the other one stops a drive that the Bills could have extended a lead. So, we were talking on the broadcast. I was down on the field before the game. The field is super hard to get footing with the real short grass and really, kind of a frozen surface below it. I don't know if that affects maybe the push you can get offensively as they're kind of submarining at the line of scrimmage, but they got it done.
How can you answer for us why you wouldn't ever consider – well, I shouldn't say never consider. I don't know if the Bills considered it, but they certainly didn't do anything with it. Rather than continuing to hammer it to the left like we've seen them do all year long, why not go to the right of McGovern, like go over Torrance, between Torrance and Spencer Brown, just for a changeup after the Chiefs had been stuffing you? Is there a reason that my feeble football mind can't grasp for why you wouldn't do that?
I mean, it's I don't know exactly either. Generally, when we would teach the sneak, we were either looking at matchups that we could attack. Is there a lighter defensive tackle? Is there a more open gap up there, and then let the quarterback – we're all blocking it the exact same way, kind of everybody's wedging inside on the play, and then let the quarterback find a gap. The Bills always go left, and they were 21 of 22 on the season. So that's just like that's their confidence. And I've thought about this at length as well, and it's a great question. The center starts to play with his right hand between his legs. It's easier to kind of get a little momentum, I guess, or get more on a guy with your left.
Okay,
so
that makes sense.
Potentially why. Maybe they like, Dion is coming down. He's your most powerful lineman up front, and maybe they like to just kind of go behind 73 in those situations.
Well, Eric, I mean, very similar to last year, not an easy team to figure out what to do with or what to fix. We had the whole concept this year where the Bills, everybody eats, all of that. It's so tired at this point. And my hesitation, I never was really on board, but they kept winning and winning, and just it sounded like a love fest. And I just couldn't get to a point where, like, I assumed it was going to win in the end. Is there somebody good enough as a receiver on this team to like step up and be the guy when it matters, even if teams expect it to be that guy, like somebody who can overcome that. Does this game, for as much success as they had, maybe it doesn't, I don't know, I'm asking you, does this game change your opinion about how it all went, or what you think the Bills might be thinking, or Brandon Beane might be thinking going into next year about this?
No, not necessarily. And, this isn't a copy of the Chiefs model, but, I feel like nowadays, if you have a quarterback like Mahomes or Allen who can elevate those around you, certainly the Bengals drafted a Jamar Chase, they drafted a T. Higgins, great. But going out and paying a guy $30 million to play receiver, I don't know that that's the answer. And maybe it is, but just for me looking at it, you have the number 2 scoring offense in the league, and it wasn't an issue for most of the season. They have a great offensive line. They used Cook extremely well this season. He was a stud again yesterday. He continues to get better and better. But I don't know that that's the answer. Are there guys that you can go out there and find some bargains on, or a late first-round draft pick that provides an added speed or down-the-field element? Sure. I'm all for that. I don't know that going out and paying a guy a ton of money on that side of the ball is the answer. Now, you look at the way the Chiefs are built, and it's what's impressed me most about their run is that they've just done it in different ways. It was a high-flying offense, and then it was trade Tyreek Hill, get 2 first-round draft picks for him, put both of those, picks into the defense, pay some guys defensively, and build up that side of the ball. And you just assume that Mahomes can get it done with the cast and crew that you give him. And, yes, you have first ballot Hall of Famer, maybe the best receiving tight end of all time, and Travis Kelce, who's now slowing down at this point of his career. He had a great first week of the playoffs. Bills holding him to 2 catches under 20 yards yesterday. But, they draft Worthy at the end of the first round, Juju Smith-Schuster, Hollywood Brown. I mean, that's not a cast that you would say they're overwhelmingly better than the Bills guys. It's, they executed better than we did yesterday, and they took advantages of the banged-up secondary at times. But, to me, and I don't get paid to do this, I'm pouring assets into the defense, whether that's in our secondary, whether that's up front on the defensive line.
Yeah, I mean, I think corner is going to be a lot of talking, almost like it was 3 years ago when they drafted Elam and Benford, because I don't know what they're going to want to do with Douglas, whose contract is up. Elam has to be, I think, done. Benford, I would expect will recover, from what was a very tough scene yesterday. But I think they're going to need a guy, unless they want to re-sign Douglas. I don't know what that'll cost, but I sort of felt like Eric, as the year went on, more and more, he was like at the scene of the crime on plays. Whether they were all his fault all the time, I mean, I can't know because scheme and zone and what, but I just feel like Douglas was so high on him last year. He was one of the guys that got hurt late that we were moaning about, like, oh, we didn't have all our guys and Douglas is playing on one leg. This year felt kind of like a letdown from him.
Yeah, I agree, especially when they got the man-man coverage. I felt like when it was man-to-man, he was often targeted, and he's a ball hawk. He's a great zone corner. He's got tremendous size to set the edge. I think on a smaller deal, he's a guy that you look to bring back and then maybe try and upgrade, but you still have him in there for dime packages or, insurance in case someone gets hurt, or, you feel good about him, and you got to play more zone defense when you get Rasul Douglas, because the top-end speed's just not there, and that's his MO. I mean, he had so many takeaways through the first part of his career, you'd assume he would be a $25 million corner. Well, the reason for that is he's not a burner, and when you get man-to-man defense and you have a guy like Worthy or whoever it may be that's going to run a crossing route and there's rub elements to it, you got to have some serious speed to keep up with those guys.
Douglas did not have an interception this season for the Bills. Correct. After 4 in 9 games last year for them. Well, Eric, I mean, I want to ask you something about like what the players do now, but I think I kind of know. You get some time away here, right? Like this is a very sudden and disappointing ending to the guys like Allen and McDermott who've been here for so long. It's got to feel familiar. Would there probably be some sense of, I don't even know right now what the next thing is. from them. I mean, I think that would seem natural because they've been so close.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, these guys weren't making plans to do anything this week. There was plenty of times where we knew come some part of December that our season was about to end. So, you kind of had plans for right after the season to go back to your hometown or, go on a vacation or what my training schedule is going to look like and all that. Yeah, I would assume it's a lot of shock there because, those guys aren't making plans and assuming they're going to lose that game. And so, it's different for everybody. I was kind of a guy that I like to take a week, maybe 2 off if the season didn't end with a surgery and then get right back into training. I always felt like it was easier to stay in shape than get back in shape. Mm-hmm. But everyone's different, and guys are wired in different ways. Some people need a bunch of time to get away from it to be able to fully then commit to the following season. And so it's different for everybody, but it's heartbreaking. These locker cleanout days are awful. It's no fun saying bye to everybody, knowing that there's going to be a lot of faces that aren't going to be in that locker room again come springtime when you all get back together. So it's not a fun day, and I know you guys have covered the team for a long year, so you've heard plenty of the sentiments over the years.
Yeah, I mean, it just comes like a bus that hits you in a crosswalk that you didn't see coming. I mean, it's like we were talking about it a little bit earlier, Eric. Leaving here last night, I'm driving past 5, 6, 7 bar restaurant places that are all parking lots empty, dark, lights out, closed. Now, it's a Sunday night at 11:30, but juxtapose that with what it would have looked like if the Bills had won that game. I bet there would have been people like swinging from chandeliers in all those places last night.
I know it. Yeah, and it's abrupt end for everybody, and this is such a passionate fan base, and there's other passionate fan bases around the NFL. A team in LA or Miami that loses, people go on with their lives. And, my wife texted me last night that the kids were crying during prayer time before bed, just so upset that the season's over and they were hoping to go to the Super Bowl too. And, they're going to have to listen to their friends at school and whatnot, which led to some fun conversations this morning on how to handle that. But, it's I mean, myself included, I'm gutted for the team. Yeah. And, there's a lot of close relationships. And, heck, I wanted to go to New Orleans really bad myself. I wanted to call a Super Bowl. I wanted to be a part of it. I wanted to be a part of a Super Bowl parade in Buffalo. I always joke with Brandon Beane that when it happens, I'll just be security for him from the Super Bowl party afterwards all the way through the parade. You can just I'll wear all black if you need me to, but I'll be your security just so I can be along for the ride. But, it just – you're right. It hits you like a ton of bricks. And, I honestly had a lot of optimism going into the game yesterday. I felt like this team was best suited when you go into the game and Rapp's your only player out defensively. You're as healthy as you've been in the postseason. You got a team that, okay, you're going to take away our pass. We can get you with the run. Like, I just felt like this team was equipped to go in there and get a win, and it just didn't happen. And look, give the Chiefs credit. They made a lot of plays. They made life difficult on the Bills. I thought throughout the game it was easier for the Chiefs to move the ball and harder for the Bills. And after a quarter or so, if the Bills won, I almost would have felt like they stole one just based upon the fact how hard it was early on them to move the football offensively. And even, you put up that touchdown before the half, and Josh, you got to throw a perfect ball to Mac Hollins, and he's interfered on the play, so we likely score anyways, but he's got to pull it in one-handed because he's got one arm tied up. And it just felt like it was harder for us to move the ball throughout the game, harder for us to get stops. And because of that, give them credit. They fought their tails off to get back in that game and have a lead in the fourth quarter. But ultimately, with a team like that, and you kind of hear it in the voices of the guys and Josh talking today, it's almost like they knew, like, we need to go in and take that. We needed a 2-score lead. Mm-hmm. We needed to take it to them. Because you give Mahomes and that crew the ball at the end of the game, or if it comes down to the wire, they're really tough to beat.
I hope your kids are all right. What is Louisville? A Bengals town mostly? There's got to be some Chiefs or some Colts.
Yeah, we don't have a team here, so there's a ton of Bengals fans, and then you also have people that just claim random teams just because they can, because they don't have a team here. But Dallas. It's amazing how many. But just through kind of our affiliations, people I've brought to games over the years, friends of mine, the fact that the Bills are cool, Josh Allen's exciting as it gets in the NFL. It's amazing how many A, Bills fans there are here, and B, how many, you get a spirit day at school and you'll have 10 Josh Allen jerseys, or, my son likes to, show off that he's got a Kincaid jersey or a James Cook, something different.
Yes,
but,
yes.
Boy
after my own heart.
Yeah, because he's he's a real fan, and so.
Oh, you're going to be a real fan. You got to get your kid a McGovern jersey. Then come on, get him the current center of the team jersey, Eric.
Yeah, I recommend. I think last year to him, and I can't remember who he got, but I mean this little man, he's got Josh Allen's high school Fireball jersey. So
nice.
It's hard. It's really hard for me to deny him when he wants something like that. You work your tail off to financially be able to provide that. I know how much I wanted jerseys when I was a kid, and my parents would give me some. I'm not acting like I was completely deprived, but when you have the resources to do it, it's really hard for me to turn those down.
My wife and son were in Louisville yesterday, or for the weekend, and
Yep.
I texted you a couple pictures. The bourbon, that got to be from. It's not bourbon if it's not from Kentucky. And my wife found a place where they had a menu. Everything's locally. Angel's Envy, I guess the distillery is right in Louisville, maybe.
Yep.
So they enjoyed it. They enjoyed the people, my wife said.
Good, yeah. Louisville reminds me, it's actually a similar size to Buffalo as well, but just good people. You don't get a ton of egos. People work hard, friendly. It's similar.
Eric, thank you again for today and all season. Get a break, and we'll catch up sometime in the off season here, I'm sure.
Yeah, sounds good. Looking forward to it. I know I texted you last night, but you guys got me through part of my drive. I appreciate that. It was you guys were doing a good job. When you guys were cutting off callers, you actually had me laughing out loud. I didn't think I was in a mood to laugh last night, but when I think it was his name might have been Neil, and you're like, all right, well, you got 60 seconds. Come on. And he's like, well, I just didn't think it was right how you cut those callers off. Like, all right, you're done now too.
I mean, it's precious time on that show. We can't have any sort of nobody tells us the rules, right? Nobody tells us the rules. Okay,
right.
We don't have to be right, but we get to decide. Thanks, Eric. Enjoy your off season here, and we'll talk again.
Yeah, for sure. You guys too. Thanks.
All right.